In the aftermath of Cyclone Nargis 10 years ago, Tzu Chi volunteers traveled to Myanmar to carry out aid distributions at 2 temples. 10 years later, Tzu Chi volunteers returned to the village to visit these old friends.
In the aftermath of Cyclone Nargis in 2008, the first disaster relief team carried out aid distribution here. This is one of the distribution venues. Let's go inside the temple.
10 years ago, the trees here have fallen. Now the area is covered with trees. Despite the passage of time, the old memories remain vivid.
Back then, the villagers gathered here and we introduced the origin of Tzu Chi to them.
How's everyone 10 years later? The devastation caused by the cyclone has left its mark in the minds of many people. One Dharma master who was skinny back then looks older now.
In just more than 10 days after Cyclone Nargis struck, Tzu Chi volunteers came here to distribute supplies.
We then returned here to distribute stationery and rice seedlings. Back then, this village chief saw us in this uniform. He happily showed us the pictures of us carrying out the aid distribution. Yes, we know the Dharma master must know a way to find him. Can you find him for us?
Can he find a person? Is he still healthy? Finally, we see the familiar face. They recall the past experience. Although Cyclone Nargis brought devastation, the experience made people stronger.
I did not imagine that they would come to our village to visit us 10 years later. Back then, as soon as Tzu Chi volunteers arrived at the temple, I rushed over there.
They're friends with whom we went through some difficult times. As the rain season approaches, when we see Ji Xuan, we are reminded of the time when Tzu Chi volunteers came.
Back then, he brought us over here. We were able to come to the village thanks to him. As we return to the village today, the roads and houses are completely different.
The picture of the distribution has become a precious treasure. During the hot drought season, as these old friends visit, May has become a special time for them all.
Back in 2008, when the first disaster relief team came to Yangon to deliver aid supplies, we were surprised to find the crowd here.
The supply recipients had increased dramatically from more than 300 households to 1,879 families. The first disaster relief team not only had to deal with the large number of supply recipients, they also had to face adverse weather. It rained heavily when the distribution was carried out. The Dharma master who provided the distribution venue still remembers how Tzu Chi volunteers prop up tarp to protect everyone from the rain.
There were a lot of people here. People all clasped their palms together. There were a lot of familiar faces. I'll never forget Tzu Chi. Back then, the village chief did not allow them to carry out the distribution, but the villagers listened to us and cooperated. Therefore, we were able to conduct the distribution smoothly.
9 volunteers completed the distribution for more than 1,800 households, making a historical record. As Tzu Chi volunteers distributed rice seedlings and food, they've also brought hope for the villagers who can now pursue a better future.